How's it going, everyone? Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. In one of my recent videos, I discussed the history of Taiwan and China. That is very complicated. And in this video, I want to discuss the United States and our position on Taiwan. That is very, very nuanced, much more nuanced than people understand. And if you don't understand these nuances, you might be fooled by the mainstream media's depiction of what's going on, and you might not understand the different actions by both sides, China and the United States, and why they're taking them. And so hopefully with this video, I give some clarification. So in the future, if either side does something, you will have a better understanding of why they did it, or why what they did pissed off the other side. And obviously recently we had the Nancy Pelosi visit to Taiwan, which angered the Chinese. And after I'm done with this video, you'll understand why they got so upset. So let's go back to 1955. The Republic of China had lost the Civil War to the communists and had moved to Taiwan. This is back in 1949. But in 55, because the United States always supports the anti-communist forces, we signed a defense treaty with them called the Sino-American Mutual Defense Treaty. And again, this took effect in 1955. And according to this treaty, it consisted of 10 main articles, but we would offer aid and support to Taiwan and vice versa if the other country came under attack. And a treaty is a legit thing that is binding. NATO, for example, is a similar treaty where if any country in NATO is attacked, the United States will be there to help them out, which is why Ukraine sort of got duped because we call them de facto NATO, but they're not NATO, which is why we will give them weapons and watch them get destroyed, but not actually help them out with their own troops on the ground. So very important, whether or not you have a treaty or if you don't, like Ukraine, you can be hung out to dry. Hope Taiwan, you're paying attention because this is what the United States does. Well, this treaty expired in 1980, so it's no longer in effect. This obligation to come and help you guys if you're under attack by the Chinese is not quite there the way it was under this treaty. Now let's move forward to 1979. The U.S. Congress passes the Taiwan Relations Act, and of course, as you can imagine, it's very wordy. But I'll read the summary right here. The Taiwan Relations Act declares it to be the policy of the United States to preserve and promote extensive, close, and friendly commercial, cultural, and other relations between the people of the United States and the people of Taiwan, as well as the people on the China mainland and all other people of the Western Pacific area. Declares that peace and stability in the area are in the political, security, and economic interests of the United States and are matters of international concern. States that the United States' decision to establish diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China rests upon the expectation that the future Taiwan will be determined by peaceful means, and that any effort to determine the future Taiwan by other than peaceful means, including by boycotts or embargoes, is considered a threat to the peace and security of the Western Pacific area and of grave concern to the United States. States that the United States shall provide Taiwan with arms of a defensive character and shall maintain the capacity of the United States to resist any resort to force or other forms of coercion that would jeopardize the security or social or economic system of the people of Taiwan. So it's not quite a treaty. It mentions giving offensive weapons, or not, I'm sorry, not offensive weapons, defensive weapons, but it's not 100% clear as far as will the United States actually engage China were they to threaten Taiwan directly. Not really here. The wording is somewhat vague. And later in this act, we established a thing called the American Institute of Taiwan. Now, why is this significant? Well, the American Institute of Taiwan is the vehicle in which the United States and Taiwan would have relations. Why not an embassy? Again, here's a nuance. We're not supposed to have a government-to-government relationship per se, because that would recognize Taiwan as being an independent country. So we do this little switch thing where we don't have an embassy, we have a institute there, which functions as an embassy, which is staffed by the State Department. Again, a little games we're playing here to avoid directly recognizing Taiwan, but still having a relationship with Taiwan that mimics a real one. So we have the American Institute in Taiwan, which functions as our State Department in a de facto way, and has Marines there to defend it like an embassy. So again, we're playing little games here at wording to avoid this handle this very delicate situation where we can't formally recognize them, but we sort of do. So let's move on. 1972, 1979, 1982. There were 3 communiques, which were joint statements by the United States and China concerning Taiwan and how we were going to sort of go forward on this. The problem, though, again, with these this joint statement is that it's not any sort of binding resolution. It's just an informal agreement between our 2 governments, the People's Republic of China and the United States, concerning different matters. But again, this is not a treaty. This is not a formal agreement. This is us trying to just get along informally. And any sort of informal thing you have to be very careful with, as we know. Now, we had a thing called the 6 assurances because what we had communicated in these communiques needed to be clarified unilaterally by the United States because we weren't happy with the exact way it was received or interpreted. So these 6 assurances, again, they're informal. They're not actually any sort of in-law thing, just the United States, our Congress, clarifying our position. And what are these 6 assurances? Well, 1, the United States will not set a date for termination of armed sales to Taiwan. Number 2, the United States will not alter the term of the Taiwan Relations Act. Number 3, the United States will not consult with China in advance before making decisions about U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. 4, the United States will not mediate between Taiwan and China. 5, the United States will not alter its position about the sovereignty of Taiwan, which was that the question was one to be decided peacefully by the Chinese themselves, and would not pressure Taiwan to enter into negotiations with China. And number 6, the United States would not formally recognize Chinese sovereignty over Taiwan. Now, in 2016, Congress got together and passed another, again, non-binding resolution, taking these informal, guidelines and making them formal, but not directly enforceable. So I think that's the important thing to recognize here is that the defense treaty was a formal thing that provided protection for Taiwan. The Taiwan Act establishes our relation with Taiwan. The communiques, the 6 assurances, they're non-binding, formal but non-binding, not directly enforceable. And again, I bring up that example of Ukraine being talked about by the NATO as being a de facto NATO member. That's garbage. Either you are or you're not. Anybody who says, says you're my friend, but if it comes down to it, I have the ability to back away from you, they're not your friend. and I've pointed out in other videos, Ukraine proxy war. We give you the weapons and the money, but we don't actually put our own skin in the game. There's no troops in Bakhmut right now in the Bakhmut meat grinder getting killed. No U.S. troops. And likewise, without a defense treaty with Taiwan, which expired back in 1970 or 1980, and with these informal arrangements, there's no obligation for the United States to militarily get involved directly with Taiwan if China were to attack, despite all the noise we're making. And so, understanding this, I hope the people in Taiwan recognize the danger of having the United States lead you on, giving you the impression that we might do that we might come to your defense, when in reality, there is no obligation to do so. And if push comes to shove and we have to weigh having our carrier groups blown apart by the Chinese in the South China Seas, we might go, maybe not. Maybe we don't want to do that. We'll back away and throw our hands in the air and go, we tried our best to help. We like you, Taiwan. The Chinese, they're so evil, but we have to back away. And so keep that in mind as you listen to the United States and what they say about Taiwan. There is no obligation. Now, back to this issue of the American Institute in Taiwan. So we have this informal arrangement where we don't formally have an embassy there. This is why China got so upset when Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan. There's this game here of nuance. We broke the rules by having our head of the House, Speaker of the House, Pelosi, go to Taiwan, because that was in a way of formally recognizing Taiwan as a independent country and having formal relations between our two governments. Again, it sounds a little ridiculous, but that nuance is important. And that's why we haven't had someone to go over there and do that, for that reason, because it was breaking that rule there. We're supposed to go through the American Institute in Taiwan. We're not supposed to do it directly with our government people. That's why China got mad. And Nancy Pelosi should have known what she was doing. Now, there's a chance, again, because she's brain dead, she's a moron. Maybe she didn't realize she was breaking this rule. But people around her in the State Department, other officials, I'm sure should have warned her and said, there's a reason why we don't do this. So she had to have known. It couldn't have been like she was just, a complete idiot. She had to have known. Someone had to have told her. But she went anyway in August 2022, which was against our arrangement. And again, that's why the Chinese were pissed off. And this is why I think this is, the attempt by the U.S. to stir the pot a little bit, get things a little spicy, try to provoke the Chinese into making some sort of reaction that we can then, the mainstream media in the United States, make a pitch to the people that China's the bad guy. The United States, we didn't do anything. And, oh, man, they're freaking out over there. What's their problem? We need to give more weapons to Taiwan. And, boy, we need to do more over there. This is the game we play. And if you don't know the history of our relations and what our exact arrangement is, and I guarantee you most Americans don't, you won't understand these nuances and why China, again, became upset when Pelosi went there in 2022. So I hope I've given Americans some information that might help them in the future to properly judge what is going on, because this is just cranking up, unfortunately. As the situation in Ukraine gets worse and worse for the Ukrainians, the focus will shift over to the Pacific, and the United States will start doing more stuff over there. And it will be a pure provocation. And right now, the Chinese, they're not even talking to us. We shot down their balloons, and they weren't spy balloons. My God. We tracked them across the Pacific. They're floating around. They were no threat. They have satellites. They want to look at facilities. There's nothing there they're going to grab that's going to be any use. So we shot them down, and the Chinese, they stopped talking to us. They don't return our phone calls anymore because they're not going to play the game. This game where we ratchet things up and then accuse them of being the aggressors, just like we did with Russia when we spent the last 7 years accusing Putin of every crime that you can think of. Anything bad happened to the United States, we blame Putin. The most ridiculous things that we can now go back and prove were complete fabrication of lies about Russia. We blamed on them, and we stirred up the hornet's nest against them. And we're going to start doing the same thing. Well, we've already started doing the same thing against China. So pay attention, know the facts, and know what the U.S. government is doing to create more tensions, not less. And we can't go around blaming other countries for being provocative when it's us who's doing all the provocations. And unfortunately, if we look past the last 30 years, that's the norm. It's usually us, not the other guys. We have the power. We can control and manipulate. And unfortunately, with the neocons in charge, we use that power for evil. And that's why this channel exists, to talk about that and to push back against that and to promote candidates who want peace, not war. So that's what I do here on this channel. Well, that's it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.